proposing that the city of Spokane Valley issue a proclamation stating that our city is a Second Amendment sanctuary city.
Welcome to the fire.
Today on Church and State, we will be joined by the amazing Reverend Craig Hagin from Rhema Bible Church. Hello, Christian Patriots, and welcome to Church and State, where we strive to plug you into the pew and plug you into politics. I'm your host, Caleb Collier. With me, as always, another amazing pastor, Gabe Blomgren.
Not quite as amazing as Pastor Craig. He just finished running some wind sprints. He was exercising this afternoon, and we caught him here in the studio. So yeah,
he was probably looking at how good a shape you're in, and was like, I got to do some sprints just to make it look, like maybe lose a pound real quick. I don't know.
Well, right. It's a pleasure to have you with us. We're so blessed, and thank you. Coming out of a state as cool as yours, we were just talking about all the great things going on in your state. So yeah, we're gonna hit some really good stuff. Those of you who are listening online, we're gonna talk about a super PAC that he's a part of that's gonna help really rally Christian pastors who support Trump. And then we are going to talk about the Rhema Bible College. We're going to talk about Rhema Ministries. And this is a huge church. I'm very good friends with many pastors who've actually graduated from this school. I'm also friends with many pastors who actually spent time with your dad, who I would say is a rock star pastor. And he's right now up in, heaven in the pearly gates. So I'm excited always to hear any stories about that. So, but it's a pleasure to have you.
I definitely want to talk about colleges, biblical colleges, because this is such a problem within the church right now of where your pastors are getting educated. So real quick, go to churchofstate.media. Take advantage of all the fine sponsors there. Also, if you want to contact us, Church of State 1776 at proton.me. All right, with that, Reverend Hagin, it is, you've been on our show before, but it is always a pleasure to have you back. There is a lot to discuss. The world changes at the drop of a hat, it seems like, anymore these days. So with that intro, thank you again for joining us, sir.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm glad to be here. For some of you guys that are watching, I actually didn't realize I was supposed to be on, so I sprinted all across campus to get up here to be on this interview. So I don't necessarily normally exercise in the middle of the afternoon. It wasn't a planned deal, but hey, I'm here. I'm excited. God's good.
Amen to that. So here, let me ask you. I already brought it up, but let me ask you about this. Currently, the state of the American church is a sad affair. There are a lot of churches that have gone full-blown woke. Also, there's a lot of churches that are refusing to address anything culturally. Like they just want to stay within the safety of the four walls, and they were not going to they call it political. I call it addressing moral issues. So you are part of one of the greater Bible colleges in the United States. And I just wanted to hear your thoughts on this and how you're training pastors as they get out in the world and start, protecting the flock.
Yeah, well, first of all, I believe that a church should be a part of the community. And being part of the community, we're actually here in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, which is a suburb of Tulsa. And I probably communicate with the mayor, if not weekly, like every other week, by a text or whatever. The vice mayor, city council, because we're part of the community, I want to know what we can do to help. And obviously, a lot of times I will say, I'm going to say I'm the kind of pastor that a few years ago, I would pray at big events, I would talk to our senators and people that will go to Washington, D.C., the senators or, our representatives, and I really wasn't that concerned about my local government, my state, even my state government. But you know what? Our city council and our mayors and our school boards, they have a lot of power. We found that out during COVID. And I want to make sure that I know everybody. So, actually, it's my wife. My wife is, like I said, I've been involved politically. I always vote. My grandfather taught me. It's my grandfather that passed away. My dad's still alive, by the way. But my grandfather always taught us that we need to obviously pray for this nation, and we need to vote. And if we don't vote, we can't gripe. Now, obviously, you know, some people say, well, my vote doesn't count, all these kind of things. But if you don't vote, it definitely doesn't count. I mean, we're hoping to work on this whole election stuff, but, it is what it is. But I believe as a pastor, if being part of the community, I need to be a part of the community. And that includes on the political thing. In fact, I encourage our church members, our graduates, that feel called, because I believe God calls us to different areas of life. And I believe there's some people that are called to the political arena. God has gifted them the talents and abilities. And, but if you're called to the political arena, first of all, you better understand the Constitution, because, we they take an oath to uphold the Constitution. So my big thing is it biblical? Is it constitutional? And those are two things. And I encourage people from our church to run, for your school board, to run for city council, to run for, you state senator, state house, or even, a higher thing. Now, I actually have a federal super PAC, preserveusa.org. If you want to check that out.
Yeah, we're going to go
we are actually, endeavoring to find, America First, Christian conservative leaders to help out. I'm also, which I didn't give you this website. I'm involved with Jackson Lawmeyer, Pastors for Trump, and so one of the things, this is pretty much, I created this myself. So actually, Jackson and I created this. So it's pretty much a landing page right now. We're going to get it more fancy and things like that. Add some things about President Trump, on here because we started this last year, and I helped out in a couple of races in Arkansas, one in New Jersey, and here in Oklahoma. And I just got involved. My wife actually, during the 2020 election, when things in the middle of the night kind of just went crazy, my wife says, "Craig, do something." And I'm like, "What am I going to do?" And then I'm like, you know what? I never tried to do anything. So I got involved with the Tulsa County Republican Party. I became the precinct chairman in my own precinct, got involved with the Oklahoma Republican Party. And, I did something which actually later on, Clay, with my help, we started a Reawaken America tour right here at Rhema Bible College. Was the very first event. And
which I want to ask you a question, Pastor Craig. I want to ask you a question. Okay, this is coming after an article Rolling Stone has now just dubbed Sean Foyt a MAGA pastor. So that's the new label, being called a MAGA pastor, which according to the Biden administration is the most clear and intense danger going on in the nation right now.
Yeah, we're all domestic violent extremists. Yeah, there's nothing worse than MAGA.
The most dangerous. So I'm cool with being labeled a MAGA pastor, by the way. But anyway, I want to ask you this question. This is me personally. This is, I think the number one reason, not the only reason, but the number one reason that Donald Trump is number one in the polls right now, clearly ahead of DeSantis. And even now the Biden administration is watching out for Hatch Act laws because they're skittish now about talking about him from their own little Billy pulpit. So they're being careful what they say now because he's the number one GOP frontrunner, even though he's been indicted. So the number one reason I'm proposing is because of Clay Clark and the Reawaken America tour. Agree? Disagree?
Yeah, I think it's a big deal. I think that, Clay didn't even have a clue what he was doing whenever we first started it. But, it's like,
He's a good organizer.
Yeah, and he just organized it. And we have put a group of people together, that are pretty tight knit. I communicate on a, constant basis with all these people. And I think, I think that's so. And Christians need to understand, we are a huge voting bloc. If we will stand together, there's nothing that's going to really stop us. And the deal is people don't vote. Now, here's the thing. I'm going on a campaign right now, and I'm going to do some things on our website. I want to make sure that everyone gets registered right now, because a lot of times people don't think about it. And so if you're not registered, in most states, you can't vote unless you're registered. Now, there are some states, obviously. And in Oklahoma, I think it's like 6 weeks before the election. But just go ahead and do it now. And so what I want to do is I want to provide links for every state so we can get registered, because that's what number one, especially young people. There's a lot of young people that want to get involved politically, and they're like, "Hey, Craig, is it too late to register?" They asked me this like 3 days before the election. I said, "We're 3 days before the election," and so right now, go, if you're not registered, wherever you are, just Google it. How do I register in whatever, county you're in? And I guarantee you can probably do it online now. But, I'm actually excited now, for 2024. I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's going to, I just think that the tide's changing right now. But I'm, my life is politics and religion. So, that's kind of, and sports. I love sports.
I do have to say, do you know how strange it is to hear a pastor say that, though? Like, you're saying it off the cuff, like it's just normal. But the reality is, Pastor Craig, we live in Washington State, and that is not the case. Their life is not religion and politics. It's very much the first. They're about religion, and they'll use the gospel. In fact, I want to ask you this question. I stirred up a bunch of pastors. There was a Charlie Kirk event that came to our city, and there's a bunch of pastors, and I threw out there that the gospel is not the number one purpose necessarily, and it's used sometimes as basically a smoke screen to protect away from doing other things. Like they'll say, hey, I can't talk about politics because I'm just about the gospel. I can't talk about homosexual unions because I'm about the gospel. I can't talk about abortion. I can't talk about babies being murdered because I'm about the gospel. And to me, that is not right. There's just something that does not sit well with me as a pastor. I think that pastors should be saying exactly what you just said. My life is about religion and politics. Why is that so foreign over here in Washington? Or why is that natural for you? Was that just obviously your dad and your grandfather were saying vote? What do you think is the real reason behind that?
Basically, if we go back into history, so think about the Old Testament. You realize the church was the government. I mean, the church controlled everything. And, I know at some point in time it got away. I think it all comes down to the separation of church and state, which, I like the way Jackson puts it. Our friend Jackson Longmire, my good friend, he actually said, you know what, Craig, that was a letter between Thomas Jefferson. I can't remember the other guy who was sent the letter to, but that'd be like sending a text message to someone and said, hey, this is what I think. But in that letter, he basically said, we need to keep the state out of the church's business. It wasn't the other way around. We want to protect the church. That was his whole concept, and obviously, if you know the history, Jefferson also put a church in the Capitol. The U.S. Capitol had a church under Jefferson, and so he wasn't really not about the church. He was about the state staying out of the church's business. And because that separation of church and state, quote unquote, text message, that's why a lot of pastors, I can't talk about it, because we're supposed to separate. We're separate. You know what? You still live in this world. Yep. And we have been given a God-given right to vote. And why wouldn't you? Okay, if you don't want to be involved as much, at least vote. In order to vote, you have to educate yourself. In order to educate yourself, you need someone to help you educate yourself. No, I will say from our church standpoint, we don't necessarily talk a lot about, we tell people to run, we tell people to vote. My dad actually, one of the most political sermons, I guess you want to say, in 2016, he took the Democrat platform, he took the Republican platform, and he says, here's the two platforms, and you decide which is the most godly platform. There's no question about it. So,
you can't question that. No.
And so when you say, okay, this platform is for abortion, and they're actually wanting to do late term 9-month abortion, and this is gay marriage, all these kind of things, and this is not. So a lot of times, now here's the thing. My personal Facebook page, social media, whatever, that's Craig W. Hagin. That's what I believe. That's on our church Facebook page. We might tell you we'll make some of us, hey, the election's coming up, you need to vote. We don't get politically involved as much. On my personal page, I'm probably going to get politically involved because that's my personal business, Right. And so I'm not doing anything against. I personally can have an opinion. Now, because I'm a pastor, my opinion kind of does matter. There are a number of people, unfortunately, that don't do their own research, and they ask me, well, Craig, who should I vote for? Well, I'm going to tell them. That's, and normally, like, comes to city council or different things, I'm going to endorse certain people. So, whether they vote for them or not, that's up to them, but I
I
don't
got a
know.
question I wanted to throw in here, Pastor Craig.
All
And
right.
I love what you're talking about with church and state. I mean, obviously, we are a church and state. We've got a pastor, we got a politician. I work in politics. I mean, we want a Christian nation. And if there's any question about that, just take a look at the flag behind us here. I know Gabe's microphone's in a little bit there, but we've replaced the stars with the cross. So yeah, we want a Christian nation. There's no mistaking that for what we're doing out here. But you brought up the two different platforms, right? The Democrats, the Republicans. You look at the platforms and you want to look at it through that biblical lens. This requires that people know their Bible. And you want to question anything about politics, it's in the Bible. Like, you want to know about representative government, it's in the Bible. You want to know about how we're supposed to treat each other civically, it's in the Bible. So this leads me to kind of a second question, or the first one that I asked you. What kind of courses are you going through at the Bible college there? What are you teaching these young men who have been called into ministry, and young women as well, that have been called into ministry, so that they can just attack the world? Because the world's attacking us, and we got to be able to defend. We got to be apologists for our faith. So I wanted to ask you what kind of courses you could expect at the college there.
I mean, our courses are more Bible based or whatever, but I will say a number of our teachers are very involved politically in the Tulsa County area. And so a lot of it is, I don't necessarily we have a certain course, and, we have looked at maybe change our curriculum a little bit to actually have some things. But right now it's more of, in fact, one of our teachers got accused of being too political or whatever. I mean, myself and other people, I mean, I'm always talking about that. You as a pastor, you should be involved. You as a Christian, you should be involved. Now, one thing that I think that we have had is a lot of young people aren't getting involved. They're not even voting. They're not even. So, step one is vote. Well, step one is probably educate yourself on the candidates. Step two is vote. And so that's why my biggest thing for young people, let's encourage them, first of all, to vote. Now, if you're going to be a pastor, I think a pastor should be pay attention to what's going on in the world. I actually preach sermons that are related to what's going on. Like, for instance, there's been a lot of fear over the last few years of COVID or whatever. And God says a lot about fear not and not giving a spirit of fear. So, but here at Rhema Bible Training College, rbtc.org, that's our website. We have a twofold thing. Rhema's a 2-year school, and we are the most affordable Bible school in the nation now. So probably we have been called the Harvard of Bible schools, but we don't teach math, English, or whatever. There's two kinds of people come to Rhema. If you feel called to go to the ministry, then we want you to come. If you maybe don't feel called to go to the ministry, but want to learn more about the Bible, because the Bible is a foundation for everything, then you need to come. I mean, I personally believe, this is my personal belief, we don't offer normal degrees like most people do. We have you get a diploma from graduating Rhema, but a number of colleges accept our credits. In fact, some people accept as many as 30 hours. And so if you look at the cost to go to Rhema is $3,100, I believe, for a whole year. And that includes your books, that includes all your fees, that includes everything for the whole year. I mean, that's our whole year. And Rhema's a 2-year program with a 3rd-year option. The first 2 years are general ministry type stuff. Then the 3rd year, if you feel called to go to pastor, you go in the pastor's group. If you're called to be a missionary, you go in the missions group. If you're called to work in music, you have a music group and things like that. If you don't feel called to do anything, we have a thing called biblical studies you can go to, where you can learn more about the Bible. So if you take biblical studies, in 3 years, you'll study every book of the Bible. All right. So some people go biblical studies and then they go to the pastor's group or things like that. And of course, the pastor's group, we kind of evolved. We don't just teach you how to become a pastor. We also, doing sermons is one thing, but social media. In fact, if you're in the pastor's group, you're going to create a mock church. You're going to pick a city and you're going to do a whole presentation. If you were to go to that city, you name your church. You do all the groundwork how to start a church, so that way you could start one.
That's
we're all.
I mean, I love this. So you're telling us that you can equip and train a minister for less than 10 grand for a 3-year program. That's amazing.
Phenomenal.
That really is.
And I want us to let everyone know that the reason we do that is because we have a thing called the Word Partner Club. And your tuition only pays about 1/3 of what it costs to educate you. The Word Partners pay 2/3 of your tuition. So we're supported by, people. Now, I always encourage all the students. I said, you should join the Word Partner program, and, it doesn't matter what you are, $10 a month. Donate $10 a month to help another student train for the ministry. So everyone who comes to Rhema gets a scholarship. Now, we don't offer online training. People say, why? Well, one thing, Rhema first started mainly to train ministers, and my grandfather said, if you're not willing to come, you won't be willing to go. Secondly, over the last few years in COVID, we've actually thought about doing some, how do you train a minister online? I mean, if I'm doing an online class or, even watching a YouTube video, I'm probably doing other things while I'm watching it. So it's a lot of distractions. And there's something about being here on campus. Like you said, even come to Oklahoma, there's something about Oklahoma. It's just like a totally different, thing, especially when you come from Washington State. It's a whole different thing. And,
are you throwing shade over there?
Yeah.
No.
But you guys are from the Spokane area, right? And Spokane tends to lean a little more right, but it doesn't matter because the rest of the state or the Seattle area, which dominates, population wise. And so, but man, Oklahoma is a great place to come. And in fact, it's like I said, the most affordable Bible school in the nation. And like I said, we don't offer online classes, and we could, if it's about making money, we would offer online classes. But it's not about making money. It's about training people. It's about getting and there's something about, it's like an intense training session. Sometimes you just need that. We don't just have 18-year-olds. There's a lot of people that are 35 making a career change, especially during COVID. Some people lost their jobs, and they're like, man, what am I supposed to do? What can I do? First of all, Oklahoma's a great place. We have a lot more freedoms than a lot of other states. A lot of people are moving in here from the West Coast and from the East Coast. But sometimes when you don't know what to do, Rhema's just a good place to get a foundation. I believe that every young adult probably needs a foundation before they go to a secular college. If they're, and I don't care if your secular college has Christian in the name. I'm not picking on Texas Christian University. I'm just throwing that out there. Just because you're TCU doesn't mean you're a Christian university.
Oh, yeah.
And not
there's a lot of partying going on at some other Christian colleges.
We've got Whitworth out here in Spokane, and you can't even call that a Christian university anymore.
Yes, I get it. I believe that you need to have a biblical foundation. So we have found out a lot of parents are suggesting their kids come to Rhema for at least 2 years and go for the 2-year general program. And then you can use that toward college credit. There's a number of colleges that offer college credit if you want to take online course. In fact, we actually, Southwestern Assembly of God College in Waxahachie, Texas, we are a sister campus because Rhema, our campus, we only do morning classes. So we get done at noon. And so they have night classes. And so you can actually take some classes here on campus from Southwestern Assembly of God College and take online classes. And so you can graduate with your bachelor's degree and Rhema at the same time if you want to. So it's
wow, that's
cool.
A fantastic deal. Yeah, I'm familiar with Waxahachie. It's just south of Dallas there. A great area. So I love it.
Yeah.
Texas, Oklahoma, 2 fantastic states. I know the Texans tease you guys that you guys are actually just part of North Texas, but we won't get into that right now. I know that's a fight. I don't want to start. Yeah.
I got a question.
Go ahead.
So we can stay on this course, but we only have a few minutes left, and I'm like, I know how much effort went into like Jackson Lawmire's campaign, and he's a full-time pastor. Okay. Yeah. I know how much effort it took for you to run, Caleb, when you were in office. And I know Matt Shea.
Or another pastor that he probably knows very well, John Bennett, when he ran.
Pastor,
he's an amazing man, and he's a full-time pastor. So how do we keep our head in the game and not get discouraged when these clearly great candidates are running, and we're good friends with them, and we see the time that they put in. How do we keep a level head and not get discouraged when they don't win? I want to hear from you.
One thing I will say, I was heavily involved in Jackson's campaign. I mean, we're good friends. I was there from the beginning. I spent a lot of time, help Jackson, even John Bennett as well. And it is frustrating, but the thing about it, both those campaigns actually taught me now some things that So even when you lose, first of all, you realize most politicians, when they get they want to get their name out, and sometimes they run a few races before they win. But now I know personally better. I'm like, if Jackson ran again tomorrow, we all know some things that he could have done and how we could have done things. And actually, I even had Mark Wayne Mullen is actually one of my good friends. He comes, he's our senator now. He actually shared with me some things that we could have done differently, that his campaign did differently, to help win in the future. I don't know what Jackson's. Well, I know what Jackson's plans are, but right now that's for him to say at some point in time. But we shouldn't get discouraged. It is what it is. It's really hard to come against an incumbent. And name recognition is huge. I mean, all these kind of things are huge. The thing about it is we as the candidates, and like Jackson's not discouraged. We got a lot of votes. We did better than people expected us to do. I say we because wasn't really part of the campaign because legally I can't be. But anyway, because I ran a super PAC, and like I said, I ran ads for Jackson. He didn't even have a clue about it. Then I call him and said, "Hey, I got radio ads running. They're going to be running today." And he's like, "Oh, really?" Because I can't, we can't coordinate and those kind of things like that. Before I had the super PAC, I was really, really involved on a heavily thing. And, Jackson now is getting involved in my super PAC as well. We're going to help men and women around the United States. I was able to, in Alabama, she didn't win, but I was able to help a lady in Alabama. I think they have 7 House seats and 6 of them are Republicans. That one was a Democrat she ran for. She didn't win, but she did better than anyone's ever done before. And so, she at least knocked on the door. So I believe in 2 years, we might can win that seat. I mean, I think she got like almost 40% of the vote. And it's been
basically, it's don't give up.
I just keep going,
Greg. But we've run out of time, and I know you got another appointment you got to race off to too. So I just wanted to thank you so much for joining us again on Church and State. We look forward to having you on again, sir.
Amen. God bless you guys, and God bless everyone's watching.
God bless you too, sir. Church and State is sponsored in part by the Constitution Party, empowering you to put faith into action. And with that, Church and State is out.
God bless.